The stars above the Lyran homeworld shimmered in patterns unfamiliar to human eyes. Vast rings of gas and glowing dust stretched across the sky, painting the night with colors that no Earth artist could capture. On the surface, the grand city of Viralia sparkled with tall crystalline towers that glowed softly. It was a world of order, discipline, and unbroken traditions. Here, the Queen ruled not only with authority, but with the weight of centuries-old customs that no one dared challenge. Commander Ethan Carter stood at the edge of a viewing balcony, taking in the view. He had been chosen as the human envoy for this mission, tasked with negotiating a fragile peace treaty between humanity and the Lyrans. The responsibility weighed heavily on him. The Lyrans were powerful, advanced, and deeply proud. Any misstep could lead to disaster. But Ethan believed in humanity's strength, its courage, creativity, and the unpredictable power of the human heart. The grand hall inside the palace was a swirl of elegant light and ceremonial grandeur. Lyrans moved with a grace that humans could never mimic. Their silver-blue skin shimmered subtly under the ambient glow, and their eyes reflected knowledge and sharp intelligence. Ethan felt both awe and unease. Every movement, every gesture seemed calculated to remind him that he was an outsider. Yet amidst all the formality, someone unusual approached him. Princess Leora, daughter of the Queen, stepped lightly into the hall. Unlike most Lyrans, she seemed to radiate curiosity rather than discipline. Her eyes, bright with intelligence, studied Ethan with a mix of interest and something he could not quite name. "Commander Carter," she said softly, her voice carrying a melodic tone that almost vibrated with emotion. "May I speak with you?" Ethan blinked, unsure if he should respond. Protocol demanded that he wait for formal introductions, but there was an honesty in her gaze that disarmed him. "Of course," he replied cautiously. Leora led him away from the crowd, down a quiet corridor lined with glowing panels and crystalline sculptures. Finally, they arrived at a balcony overlooking the city's luminescent spires. She turned to him, her expression unguarded. "Humans are fascinating," she said, almost to herself, "so full of emotion, so unpredictable." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Fascinating is one way to put it. But Lyrans don't feel in the same way humans do you?" Leora smiled faintly. "We have emotions, yes, but they are contained, controlled. Expression is unnecessary in most of our society. But you humans, you show your hearts openly. You laugh, you cry, you fight for what you love. It is beautiful." Ethan chuckled softly. "That sounds like a compliment, though I'm not sure it's safe to call human emotions beautiful here." She tilted her head, studying him carefully. "I want to understand it. All of it, and—" She paused, hesitating as if unsure she dared to speak. Then almost in a whisper she said, "Show me the way to be your wife, human." Ethan froze. The words echoed in his mind. "Your what?" "My wife," she repeated with quiet determination. "I want to learn from you. To understand how humans live, how humans love. I wish to be with you in that way." For a moment, Ethan thought he must have misheard. The idea seemed impossible. Lyrans did not marry humans. In fact, no human had ever even been close to the Queen's family before. The thought of a forbidden bond, breaking centuries of tradition, made his heart race. Yet looking at Leora, he saw sincerity in her eyes. She was not joking, not testing him, not seeking a challenge. She wanted to learn. She wanted connection. And in that moment, he felt a strange sense of honor and responsibility. "You understand that this is unprecedented," he said slowly. "Your people have rules that go back thousands of years. You could get in serious trouble for this." "I know," Leora said softly, but her gaze did not waver. "And yet, I cannot stop thinking about it. I wish to learn from you, even if it means breaking some rules." Ethan exhaled deeply. He had trained for diplomacy, negotiation, and sometimes combat. But this was something entirely new. Teaching an alien princess about human life, emotions, and relationships, he had never imagined it. "Very well," he said finally. "If you truly wish to learn, I will teach you. But understand, it will not be simple. Human relationships are complicated. They require trust, patience, and sometimes courage, and you must be willing to risk a lot to understand them fully." Leora's face lit up with a smile, a flicker of excitement in her eyes. "I am ready," she said. Unbeknownst to them, from a hidden gallery above, the Queen watched. Her eyes were sharp, cautious, and cold. She had seen the interaction and felt a surge of alarm. No Lyran had ever dared to speak so openly to a human, let alone request something so intimate. For the first time in centuries, her carefully ordered world trembled. The queen leaned closer, her voice almost a whisper to herself. "This cannot be allowed. He is human. She is my daughter. She does not understand the consequences." Meanwhile, Leora and Ethan began to talk. The first lessons were simple, basic human behaviors, customs, and communication. Ethan explained concepts that humans took for granted: kindness, honesty, empathy. Leora listened intently, asking questions that were sometimes naive, sometimes startlingly insightful. "How do you forgive?" she asked one evening as they watched the twin moons rise over the city. "If someone hurts you but you still care about them." Ethan considered this. "Forgiveness is complicated. It's not about letting someone off easily. It's about letting go of anger so that both people can grow. It takes courage and trust." Leora's eyes glimmered with understanding. "I want to learn that, to feel it, to understand it fully." Days passed and the lessons continued. Ethan showed her how humans express joy, sadness, and affection. He taught her about the importance of small gestures, sharing food, speaking honestly, helping without expecting reward. Each lesson was a window into a world that Leora had never seen. At first, she struggled. Lyrans were trained to suppress emotions, to act logically and efficiently. But slowly, under Ethan's patient guidance, she began to smile more freely, to laugh at human jokes, and to question the rigidity of her own culture. One evening, after a long day of lessons, they sat together under the starlit sky. Ethan handed her a small trinket, a simple human charm representing friendship and trust. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "In my world, we have objects that symbolize power, loyalty. But this symbolizes something you feel inside." Ethan nodded. "Yes, it's about connection, about caring for someone beyond rules or expectations." Leora clutched the charm tightly. "I want to feel that. I want to understand fully, and I want to share it with you if you will have me." Ethan smiled, a mix of admiration and caution in his eyes. "We have a long journey ahead, Princess. But if you are truly willing, I will guide you." Above them, the queen's eyes narrowed. She had seen enough to understand the risk. Yet something stirred within her, a curiosity she had never admitted. Could this human truly teach her daughter something her centuries of tradition could not? The first part of this journey was complete. Leora had made her choice, and Ethan had accepted the challenge. Neither knew what trials awaited them, nor the ripple their bond would create through Lyran society. But one thing was certain. A connection had formed that would change everything, not just for them, but for two worlds standing at the edge of a new era. As the moons reflected in Leora's wide, eager eyes, and Ethan looked at her with quiet determination, the stars above seemed to shine a little brighter. For in that moment, two very different beings had begun a journey not just of love, but of understanding, courage, and the limitless possibilities of the human heart. And far above, the queen continued to watch, knowing that her carefully ordered world might never be the same again. The palace of Virelia gleamed in the light of dawn, casting long crystalline reflections across the city. The queen sat quietly in her chambers, contemplating the events of the past weeks. Princess Leora had grown into a figure of courage, empathy, and wisdom. She had challenged centuries of tradition, not recklessly but with thought, care, and understanding. And the human Ethan Carter had guided her, taught her, and inspired her without force or arrogance. The queen knew that the final step was near. Leora had proven herself to the people, to the court, and to the queen herself. But the ultimate challenge remained. Would the bond between human and Lyran be accepted openly? Would the two worlds embrace this connection, or retreat into fear and suspicion? Ethan and Leora met in the palace gardens. The air was crisp, and the twin moons of Virelia Minor still shone faintly, lingering from night. "Ethan," Leora said softly, "everything is ready. The court has seen our lessons, the citizens have witnessed our bond, and the queen has observed. Now we must see if acceptance is possible." Ethan nodded. "It is not guaranteed, but you have shown courage, understanding, and wisdom beyond your years. The rest will follow naturally." They entered the grand hall together. The chamber was filled with dignitaries, advisors, and citizens. The atmosphere was tense but expectant. The queen sat at her throne, her gaze steady yet not unkind. Leora stepped forward. People of Veralia, she began, I have learned much from Commander Ethan Carter. I have learned that courage, trust, and empathy are not weaknesses. They are strengths. They can guide us to new heights, unite our worlds, and inspire cooperation that benefits all. The room was silent. Then Ethan spoke. Your Majesty, citizens of Veralia, I have nothing to demand. I only ask that you consider the value of understanding, of connection, and of learning from each other. Humans and Lyrans can grow together, not by abandoning tradition, but by embracing the best of both worlds. The Queen rose slowly, her voice echoing through the hall. Princess Leora has proven herself worthy of respect, courage, and understanding. The human, Ethan Carter, has shown wisdom, patience, and integrity. Therefore, I grant my approval for their bond, recognizing it not as defiance, but as a bridge between our species. A collective gasp spread through the chamber, followed by murmurs of acceptance, admiration, and cautious hope. In the following days, celebrations were held across Veralia. Humans and Lyrans worked together in new projects, sharing knowledge, technology, and culture. The bond between Leora and Ethan became a symbol of unity, courage, and understanding, a beacon for generations to come. Leora and Ethan continued their lessons and worked together, but now openly. Lyrans approached them with questions, curiosity, and sometimes skepticism. But each interaction strengthened trust and collaboration. One evening, standing on a balcony overlooking the glowing city, Leora turned to Ethan. I never imagined it could be like this, she said. The people, they are beginning to understand, and we have shown them the way, Ethan smiled. You did this, Leora, I only guided. You chose courage, honesty, and connection. That is what inspired them. That is what will shape the future. The Queen joined them quietly, observing the city and the stars. For a long moment she said nothing. Then softly she spoke. Leora, you have changed more than just yourself. You have changed our society. You have shown that courage, empathy, and understanding, qualities humans value, can strengthen even the most disciplined of civilizations. Leora smiled at her mother, gratitude and love in her eyes. Thank you, Mother, for trusting me and for allowing me to follow my own path. The Queen nodded, a rare smile crossing her features. Your path has led us all forward. In the months that followed, humanity and the Lyrans worked together more closely than ever before. Exchange programs, joint explorations, and cultural initiatives flourished. Leora and Ethan's bond remained strong, a living example of what connection, courage, and trust could achieve. And though challenges remained, both species had taken the first steps toward understanding and unity. For the first time, the Queen saw that sometimes change and even love was the greatest strength of all. Leora and Ethan stood together on the balcony, watching the stars above Veralia shine brighter than ever. They knew the journey was far from over, but they also knew one truth: courage, understanding, and connection could bridge even the widest gaps between worlds. And in that shining light, humanity had proven its worth to the stars. The Palace of Veralia, usually a symbol of order and control, felt charged with tension. Whispers of the princess's unusual behavior had spread through the court, reaching every corridor, every chamber. Lyrans were creatures of tradition. They valued loyalty, obedience, and conformity above all else. Yet Princess Leora now laughed freely, questioned old rules, and openly defied expectations. The Queen sat in her private chambers, her expression a mixture of concern and curiosity. She had watched her daughter for weeks, observed her interactions with the human, and monitored the lessons Ethan provided. Leora's growth was undeniable. She was stronger, more confident, and increasingly independent. And yet the Queen's fear remained. Fear that the princess's choices could destabilize not only her family, but the entire Lyran society. Advisor Sirius, the Queen said, her voice crisp. Report. What have you observed? Sirius bowed slightly. Your Majesty, the princess continues to embrace the lessons of the human. She demonstrates courage, empathy, and understanding that surpass expectations. The human's influence is undeniable. However, factions within the court view this as dangerous. They fear Lyran tradition is being challenged. The Queen's eyes narrowed. Dangerous, perhaps, but it may also be necessary. I must decide if tradition alone defines worth, or if growth and understanding can reshape our society. Meanwhile, Leora and Ethan met in the palace gardens. The twin moons reflected off the crystalline fountains, casting light across the marble paths. "Ethan," Leora said quietly, "I do not wish to hide anymore. I want to embrace what I have learned openly, even if it angers the court or the queen." Ethan regarded her thoughtfully. "That is brave, princess. But be cautious. Change can bring resistance, even hostility. You must act with wisdom, not just courage." "I understand," Leora said firmly. "But hiding who I am is no longer possible. I must show them that understanding and emotion are strengths, not weaknesses." The next morning, Leora walked into the royal court with a confidence she had never shown before. She addressed the gathered advisors and nobles, her voice clear and steady. "My people," she began, "I have learned much from the human, Commander Ethan Carter. I have learned about trust, courage, and empathy, things humans value deeply. These lessons do not weaken me. They strengthen me. They can strengthen all of us." Whispers rippled through the court. Some faces reflected shock, others admiration. The queen observed silently, her eyes sharp and calculating. Leora continued, "Our traditions have guided us for centuries. But we must ask, are we so rigid that we cannot grow? Are we so afraid of change that we reject the lessons that could make us stronger?" An elder advisor spoke, his voice trembling. "Princess, you risk undermining centuries of rule. Your words are unprecedented." "Yes," Leora replied, "and so is the time we live in. If we are to survive and thrive among other species, we must learn. We must embrace connection, trust, and understanding. I choose to do so openly and without fear." The queen's gaze softened slightly, though her expression remained stern. She saw her daughter's determination, her growth, and the undeniable truth that Leora had changed, and perhaps the court must change as well. Over the next several days, Leora continued to act with courage and wisdom. She implemented small initiatives in the palace, sharing meals with lower-ranking officials, listening to concerns directly from citizens, and demonstrating empathy in situations where Lyrans would usually remain detached. Ethan guided her quietly, offering advice and support. "Leadership is not just about authority," he reminded her one evening. "It is about understanding those you lead, about inspiring trust and respect." "You already have that," Leora smiled. "I feel stronger with these lessons. But there is still so much I must show them. Not only to prove the value of human ways, but to prove the value of my own choice." The queen summoned Leora privately. The princess entered cautiously, unsure whether her mother's mood had shifted toward anger or contemplation. "Leora," the queen began, "you have taken bold steps. Your actions defy centuries of tradition. Yet I cannot deny your growth. You are wiser, stronger, and more perceptive than many Lyrans I have trained for decades. But your path is not without risk. The court, your people, they may not understand." "I know," Leora said respectfully, "but I cannot ignore what I have learned. Humans show me courage, trust, and hope. I wish to bring these qualities to my people." The queen studied her daughter carefully. "Very well. You may continue, but with caution. I will observe and the court will watch. This is your final test, to see if your convictions can survive scrutiny." Days turned into weeks. Leora faced resistance, but also moments of triumph. Advisors began to notice that her openness inspired trust, that her empathy encouraged cooperation, and that her courage sparked innovation. Even among humans and Lyrans working together, the exchange of knowledge flourished. Ethan stood by her side, guiding and supporting, but always respecting her autonomy. Their bond deepened, not only in trust but in understanding. Leora had become confident in her abilities, and Ethan had learned to appreciate the unique courage and wisdom of a species that valued discipline above all. The queen observed quietly, slowly recognizing that her daughter's choices might not destroy tradition, but could strengthen it. She realized that growth sometimes required courage greater than obedience, and that love and understanding, qualities humans embodied, could inspire even the most disciplined of Lyrans. In the final days of observation, the queen called for a public demonstration of Leora's learning. In the grand hall filled with dignitaries and citizens, Leora stood with Ethan. "Today," she said, "we show that understanding, trust, and empathy are not weaknesses. They are strengths that unite species, societies, and individuals. Humans and Lyrans can learn from each other, grow together, and inspire change." The audience was silent for a moment, then erupted in murmurs of admiration and curiosity. Some skeptics remained, but many acknowledged the truth in her words. The Queen's eyes met Ethan's. Though still guarded, a glimmer of pride and respect shone through. She had watched, judged, and now reluctantly accepted that the bond between her daughter and the human envoy had value, not just for Leora, but for all of Varelia. Leora smiled, her heart steady. She had broken tradition, but in doing so she had built a bridge between two worlds. And with Ethan by her side, she knew the journey of connection, courage, and growth was only beginning. The Lyran Palace, normally quiet at night, was alive with soft glows and murmurs of distant patrols. Princess Leora paced slowly along the balcony, the small charm Ethan had given her resting in her palm. Its simplicity and meaning fascinated her. Every time she looked at it, she felt a warmth she had never experienced before, an unfamiliar kind of courage and trust. Ethan had promised to teach her about humans, and she was eager to begin. But understanding humanity was not simple. Humans were unpredictable, emotional, and sometimes illogical. Leora knew that absorbing this knowledge would take patience, observation, and courage. The next morning, she found Ethan waiting in the palace garden, surrounded by alien flora that glowed softly under the twin suns. He had a casual smile, something rare among humans in formal settings. "Good morning," he said, bowing slightly. "Are you ready for today's lessons?" "I am," Leora replied, adjusting the folds of her ceremonial robe. "I want to learn more about how humans feel, how they care for each other, how they show respect and love." Ethan nodded. "We start simple. Understanding humans is about observing their actions and choices, not just their words. Humans express emotion in small ways, helping without reward, listening carefully, sharing laughter and sorrow. You must notice these gestures carefully." He gestured to a small fountain in the garden. "For example, notice how water flows over the stones. Humans find joy in simple things. We take pleasure in watching, listening, and sharing moments with others." Leora knelt by the fountain, tracing the water with her delicate fingers. "It is as calming," she said. "I see why humans might find happiness here. It is peaceful and shared." "Exactly," Ethan said. "It is about connection. Humans care about others, sometimes more than themselves. That is a strength, but also a vulnerability." Leora's eyes widened. "Vulnerability? I do not fully understand it. Humans allow themselves to feel even when it is risky." "Yes," Ethan replied. "Humans take risks with their hearts, not just their lives. We trust, forgive, and sometimes fail, but that is what makes us strong." For hours, Ethan guided her through human behaviors, explaining gestures, expressions, and routines. Leora asked endless questions, curious, precise, and sometimes startlingly philosophical. "How do humans forgive?" she asked again, her mind returning to the idea from their previous night. If someone betrays or hurts them, how do they choose to move on? Ethan considered her question carefully. Forgiveness is not easy. It is a choice, a conscious effort to let go of anger. Humans forgive when they see potential for growth or when they care too much to stay bitter. It is about hope. Leora tilted her head, absorbing the concept. Hope. Humans are fragile yet resilient. They embrace uncertainty and risk for connection. Exactly, Ethan said. That is what makes us human and why relationships are complicated. They demand courage, patience, and honesty. The days passed quickly. Leora began to mimic human behaviors, smiling freely, laughing at Ethan's dry humor, and even attempting small jokes herself. She found herself fascinated by the human ability to celebrate life's small moments, from sharing a meal to enjoying music. One evening, Ethan brought out a simple musical device, a small instrument called a guitar. Its sound was strange to Leora's ears, yet strangely moving. Humans express feelings through music, Ethan explained. We use it to connect, to remember, to feel joy and sorrow together. Leora hesitated, then strummed a few strings. The sound was awkward yet beautiful in its imperfection. It communicates emotion, she whispered. I feel connected, even though I do not understand all the notes, Ethan smiled. That is the point. Humans communicate not just with words, but through shared experience. Music, laughter, touch, even silence, they all convey feeling. Leora's curiosity deepened. She began to observe Ethan in private moments, noticing his small habits and gestures, the way he carefully checked supplies, the thoughtful pause before he spoke, the way he always listened first before judging. She realized that humans' attention to detail often revealed more about their character than their words ever could. But it was not only about observation. Leora struggled with the human concept of emotions that conflicted with logic. Lyrans prided themselves on discipline, on keeping feelings contained. Showing vulnerability was considered weakness. One day, during a lesson on courage and honesty, Leora hesitated. "Ethan, what if showing emotion causes harm? My people, they do not allow weakness." Ethan took a slow breath. "Sometimes it does. But hiding feelings can be worse. Courage is not just in battle. It is in honesty, in admitting mistakes, and caring even when it is difficult. Humans risk hurt because we know that connection is worth it." Leora nodded slowly. The lesson sank in. She understood that love, trust, and care were not weaknesses. They were strengths that required bravery. Meanwhile, word of her interactions with Ethan began to reach the Queen. Observers had reported unusual behavior. The princess laughing freely, engaging in private conversation with a human, and even showing gestures of trust and openness unknown to Lyrans. The Queen's alarm grew. She summoned her advisors in a private chamber, her eyes sharp and calculating. "This human, he cannot be trusted," she said, her voice firm. "He is influencing my daughter in ways that go against tradition. The bond they form could destabilize our society." One advisor, cautious but curious, spoke up. "Perhaps, Your Majesty, this is not a threat." "Princess Leora is learning?" "Understanding. Could this be an opportunity rather than a danger?" The Queen's eyes narrowed. "An opportunity? To what end? The Lyran way is our way. Tradition protects us. Emotion and attachment are unpredictable. They bring chaos. He is human. He cannot be allowed to change her." But despite her warnings, the Queen could not look away from the balcony above, observing her daughter with the human. A small part of her wondered if there was value in what Ethan was teaching, something her centuries of rule could not provide. Back in the garden, Leora continued her lessons. Ethan introduced her to the idea of shared responsibility, the human belief that relationships thrive on mutual effort and understanding. They practiced small exercises, listening without interrupting, acknowledging feelings, and making decisions together. "It is strange," Leora admitted one afternoon, "to care for someone without expecting reward. In my world, actions are for honor, loyalty, or gain. Humans give freely," Ethan smiled. "That is part of being human. We learn from each other, we support, and sometimes we make mistakes, but we keep trying." Leora's eyes shone. "I want to keep trying, to understand fully and to share it with you." Ethan paused, touched by her words but aware of the challenges ahead. "We have a long way to go, Princess. Not everyone will understand this bond. But if you are willing, I will guide you." Their lessons were not without tension. Leora struggled with Lyran expectations, and Ethan had to navigate the fine line between teaching and respecting her culture. Yet their bond deepened. Each conversation, each shared moment strengthened mutual trust. One night, as twin moons reflected on the palace gardens, Leora whispered, "Ethan, why do humans risk so much for love and connection?" Ethan thought for a moment. "Because it is worth it. Because connection makes life meaningful. Humans do not survive on strength or logic alone. We survive and thrive because we care." Leora's hand brushed against his as she held the small charm, and for the first time, she felt the weight of human emotion, not just understanding but truly feeling it. Courage, hope, and love intertwined in ways she had never imagined possible. Far above, the Queen continued her watch. She felt a mixture of fear and fascination. Her daughter's growth was undeniable, and Ethan's influence, though troubling, was impossible to ignore. A new understanding had begun, one that might change Lyran society forever. By the end of the second week, Leora was transformed. She laughed freely, showed compassion without reservation, and began to act in ways that confused even her advisors. Yet, with Ethan's guidance, she learned balance, integrating human emotion with her Lyran discipline. Their time together concluded with a quiet moment by the fountain. Leora held the charm close, looking up at the twin moons. "Ethan, I feel different, stronger. I understand humans at least a little, and I understand myself better than ever." Ethan nodded. "You've learned quickly, Princess. More than I expected. But this is only the beginning. Humanity is vast, unpredictable, and endlessly fascinating, and so are you." As the night deepened, the stars shimmered above Viralia, Leora and Ethan knew that the road ahead would be challenging. The Queen's watchful gaze, the weight of tradition, and the reactions of their respective peoples would all pose obstacles. Yet one thing was certain. Leora had taken her first steps into humanity. She had learned to see the world through human eyes, to feel beyond rules and to embrace connection. And Ethan, too, had begun to see that humans were not the only species capable of courage, growth, and love. Together, they had begun a journey, one that would test their hearts, challenge centuries of tradition, and perhaps change the course of two civilizations forever. The Lyran Palace felt colder than usual, though the twin suns still glowed softly through the crystalline walls. The Queen's eyes, sharp as blades, followed every movement of her daughter and the human envoy. Princess Leora had changed. She laughed more freely, questioned traditions openly, and displayed emotions the Queen had spent centuries suppressing. And all of it had been influenced by Ethan Carter, the human who dared to defy Lyran customs. The Queen called for her advisors. The chamber was vast and silent except for the soft hum of energy that powered the palace's systems. "This human," she began, her voice steady but laced with authority, "he has influenced my daughter beyond reason. I will allow this no longer. If humans are to remain guests in Veralia, he must prove his worth, not only as a diplomat but as a guide, a teacher, and a partner." The advisors nodded cautiously. One, a tall Lyran named Sirius, stepped forward. "Your Majesty, how will this test be conducted? Leora's bond with the human is unusual. Are we to challenge him in private or in public?" The Queen's eyes narrowed. "Both. He must demonstrate courage, integrity, and understanding. Let him prove that he is worthy of influencing my daughter, worthy of human Lyran connection, and if he fails, the bond ends immediately." Ethan was summoned to a private audience with the Queen. He entered the chamber carefully, bowing with respect. The Queen studied him silently, her expression unreadable. "Commander Carter," she began, "your influence over my daughter is unacceptable according to Lyran law. Yet there is potential. Therefore, I am giving you a choice. Prove your worth or be denied any contact with Princess Leora. This test is not trivial. It will challenge your courage, your morality, and your understanding of what it means to connect across species." Ethan swallowed hard. "I understand, Your Majesty. I accept your test." The Queen's eyes softened slightly, though only the smallest fraction of a degree. "Very well. Your first task begins immediately. You will accompany a Lyran research expedition to the moon Veralia Minor. A group of Lyran scientists has gone missing during an experiment. You must locate them and ensure their safety. The expedition is dangerous. Hostile terrain, unstable atmospheres, and unpredictable storms. Success will demonstrate your courage and decision-making. Failure will end your mission." Ethan nodded. The stakes were clear. This was more than a diplomatic mission, it was a test of character. And though the Queen's watchful eyes weighed on him, he felt no fear. Fear was a human reaction, yes, but courage often meant moving forward despite it. The journey to Veralia Minor was tense. The shuttle hummed through space carrying Ethan, Leora, and a small team of Lyran guides. Leora, normally curious and playful, was quiet, her eyes fixed on the window as the barren moon approached. "Are you afraid?" Ethan asked gently, noticing her tension. Leora shook her head. "No, but I understand now why humans must confront fear. It is not just danger. It is knowing the stakes and choosing to act anyway." Ethan smiled faintly. "That is good insight. Courage is not absence of fear, it is action despite it." The shuttle landed on the moon's rocky surface with a jolt. Outside, the wind howled, carrying sharp particles that cut through armor. The Lyran team scanned the area, noting the last known coordinates of the missing scientists. Hours passed as they navigated treacherous cliffs, fissures, and unstable rock formations. The humans' presence initially caused tension. Lyrans were precise, methodical, and cautious. Humans were unpredictable. Ethan had to demonstrate not only bravery but thoughtful planning. He suggested ways to navigate dangerous terrain, often improvising solutions the Lyrans had overlooked. At one point, a deep fissure blocked their path. The Lyran guides hesitated. "The risk is too high," one said. Ethan examined the fissure. "If we take the right precautions, we can cross safely. But we must trust each other and act as a team," Leora observed silently. She had learned from Ethan that courage was not recklessness. Strategy, Trust and collaboration were all part of human bravery. Finally, after hours of difficult navigation, they located the missing scientists, trapped on a ledge above a chasm. One of the researchers had injured her leg. Ethan took immediate action, coordinating the Lyrans and using both human improvisation and the Lyrans' precision to secure the team safely. When all were finally safe, Leora stepped forward, eyes shining. "Ethan, you saved them. You risked yourself for others. That is human courage." Ethan shook his head modestly. "We all contributed. Courage is not just one person's act. It is everyone choosing to act with care and bravery." Unseen by them, a transmission from the Queen monitored every moment. She remained silent, yet her expression betrayed a flicker of respect. The human had passed the first part of her test. Upon returning to Virelia, the Queen announced a second challenge. She summoned Ethan and Leora to the royal court. The chambers were filled with Lyran advisors, scholars, and nobles, an audience that could influence the Queen's final decision. "This is your trial of wisdom and integrity," the Queen declared. "You will demonstrate your understanding of human values and how they can coexist with Lyran principles. You must defend your choices, explain your actions, and show that the bond between human and Lyran is not reckless, but worthy of respect." Ethan took a deep breath. Speaking before the Queen and her court was daunting, but he relied on everything he had learned. "Your Majesty," he began, "humans value connection, empathy, and courage. These qualities do not oppose your traditions, they complement them. Understanding each other does not weaken your society. It strengthens it. By learning to trust across species, we can share knowledge, creativity, and hope." Leora stepped forward, her voice steady. "I have learned from Commander Carter that connection is not weakness. It is courage. It is trust. Humans and Lyrans can grow together if given the chance." The Queen's gaze bore into them. Whispers rippled through the court. Some advisors were intrigued, others skeptical. Leora's words were bold, too bold, many thought, but undeniably honest. The Queen decided on a final test: observation. She would watch them closely over the coming weeks, seeing whether their bond was genuine or merely curiosity. She sent advisors to monitor Ethan's interactions with Leora, how he taught, how he guided, and how he respected her autonomy. Ethan continued his lessons, but now with added tension. Every gesture, every word could be scrutinized. Yet he remained patient, honest, and consistent. Leora, in turn, grew stronger, more confident, and more perceptive. She began not only to learn from Ethan, but also to teach herself, integrating human emotion with Lyran logic. One evening, as the twin moons rose above Virelia, Ethan and Leora sat quietly in the palace gardens. "Do you think the Queen will approve?" Leora asked, her fingers tracing the small charm once more. Ethan considered carefully. "Approval is not guaranteed. Tradition is powerful. But I believe she will recognize what we have built, the bond, the understanding, the courage. That is something that cannot be ignored." Leora smiled softly. "Even if she does not approve, I have learned so much." "And I have." "Hope," Ethan nodded. "Hope is what makes humans brave, and you? You are learning to be brave too." The Queen watched from a distant gallery, silent but thoughtful. For the first time, she wondered if her centuries of caution had blinded her to possibilities. The human had passed the test of courage, demonstrated wisdom, and guided her daughter to understanding. Could it be that humans were not only capable of connection, but of inspiring change even in the most rigid societies? As the night deepened and stars reflected off Virelia's crystalline towers, the Queen knew that the coming days would be critical. Ethan had survived the physical test and begun to demonstrate the qualities she valued. But the ultimate challenge would be to see whether his influence could withstand the scrutiny of Lyran tradition and whether Leora's choice to embrace human lessons could reshape the path of two civilizations forever.